Jan Min, a young human man in his late 20s, stood in the center of the bustling spaceport, his eyes fixed on the towering transport ship that had just docked. He had been summoned by the Galactic Trade Federation to receive a gift, a slave from a newly conquered alien world. The thought of owning another sentient being made Jan Min uneasy, but he knew better than to defy the orders of the powerful interstellar organization. As the hatch of the transport ship opened, a slender, pale-skinned figure emerged. Jan Min's breath caught in his throat as he laid eyes on the young alien woman. She moved with a graceful, almost ethereal quality, her delicate features framed by a cascade of ebony hair. Despite the heavy manacles binding her wrists, there was an undeniable air of dignity and resilience about her. The alien woman approached Jan Min, her piercing gaze meeting his with a mixture of apprehension and defiance. "I am Hannah," she stated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have been given to you as a slave." Jan Min felt a twinge of discomfort at her words. He had not asked for this gift, nor did he feel comfortable with the idea of owning another person. Nevertheless, he knew that refusing the Federation's offer would only bring him trouble. Swallowing his misgivings, he nodded stiffly and gestured for Hannah to follow him. As they made their way through the bustling spaceport, Jan Min found himself stealing glances at his new slave. Hannah walked with her head held high, her steps measured and deliberate, despite the chains that bound her. Jan Min couldn't help but admire her resilience and composure in the face of such an overwhelming and daunting situation. Once they reached Jan Min's modest apartment, he gestured for Hannah to enter. "This will be your new home," he said, his voice tinged with an awkward formality. "I understand that this is a difficult situation for you, but I will do my best to ensure your comfort and safety." Hannah's eyes narrowed slightly, and Jan Min could see the mistrust and apprehension written on her delicate features. "I am not here for my comfort," she responded, her tone clipped and guarded. "I am here to serve you, as you have been instructed." Jan Min winced inwardly at her words, feeling a pang of guilt and discomfort. He had never owned a slave before, and the idea of having absolute power over another sentient being made him deeply uneasy. Unsure of how to proceed, he gestured towards a small room off to the side. "This will be your quarters," he said, keeping his voice as neutral as possible. "You are free to use it as you wish, within reason. I hope you will feel safe and at home here." Hannah regarded him with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity, as if she was trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. After a moment of hesitation, she inclined her head slightly and stepped into the modest but clean room, taking in her new surroundings. Jan Min watched her silently, his brow furrowed in thought. He had not asked for this unexpected gift from the Galactic Trade Federation, and the thought of owning another person filled him with a deep sense of unease. Yet, as he observed Hannah's graceful movements and the resolute set of her shoulders, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of fascination and admiration. "If there is anything you need, please let me know," Jan Min said, breaking the heavy silence. "I know this must be a difficult adjustment for you, but I will do my best to make your stay here as comfortable as possible." Hannah turned to face him, her dark eyes inscrutable. "I appreciate your kindness," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I am not here for my own comfort. I am here to serve you, as I have been instructed." Jan Min felt a twinge of discomfort at her words, but he nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Very well," he said, his own voice low and measured. "Then I will do my best to be a fair and compassionate master." With that, he turned and left the room, closing the door behind him. As he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to take an unexpected and profound turn. In the days that followed, Jan Min found himself increasingly drawn to his new slave, Hannah. Despite the awkward circumstances of their introduction, he couldn't help but admire her resilience, intelligence, and quiet grace. As Jan Min provided Hannah with the basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter, he observed her closely, fascinated by her adaptability and her keen observational skills. Hannah seemed to absorb every detail of her new surroundings, her dark eyes scanning the room with a discerning gaze. One day, as Jamin was preparing a simple meal, Hannah approached him hesitantly. "May I assist you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jamin looked up, surprised by her request. You don't have to do that," he replied, instinctively waving her away. "I can handle it myself." Hannah's brow furrowed slightly, and Jamin could see a flicker of determination in her eyes. "Please," she said, her tone more insistent. "I wish to be useful. I want to earn my keep." Jamin studied her for a moment, taken aback by her determination. Finally, he nodded and gestured towards the kitchen counter. "Very well," he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "You can help me chop the vegetables." Hannah's face lit up with a small, triumphant smile, and she immediately set to work, her movements swift and precise. Jamin watched, mesmerized, as she deftly wielded the knife, her slender fingers guiding the blade with a deft touch. As they worked side by side, Jamin couldn't help but notice the way Hannah's brow furrowed in concentration, or the way her lips moved silently as she counted the number of pieces she had chopped. It was the first time he had seen her display any sort of emotion beyond the stoic mask she had worn since their first meeting. "You're very skilled," Jamin remarked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Hannah glanced up, a flicker of pride flashing across her features. "On my homeworld, I was trained in the culinary arts," she explained, her voice steady and measured. It was one of the few luxuries afforded to the lower classes. Jamin nodded, his curiosity piqued. "I see," he murmured, his gaze lingering on her nimble hands. "Well, I'm grateful for your assistance. The meal will be much better with your expertise." Hannah inclined her head slightly, the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I am pleased to be of service," she said, her tone formal but with a hint of warmth. As they continued to work together, Jamin couldn't help but notice the way Hannah's rigid posture slowly began to relax. She still maintained a certain formality in her interactions, but there was a growing sense of ease and familiarity between them. When the meal was finally ready, Jamin gestured for Hannah to join him at the table. "Please," he said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Have a seat and enjoy the fruits of our labor." Hannah hesitated for a moment, her eyes widening slightly. I am not permitted to dine with you," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Jamin frowned, a twinge of discomfort stirring in his chest. "Nonsense," he said firmly. "You worked just as hard as I did to prepare this meal. You deserve to enjoy it as well." Hannah looked up, her dark eyes meeting his with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Slowly, she lowered herself into the chair, her movements graceful and measured. As they ate, Jamin found himself engaged in a surprisingly pleasant conversation with Hannah. She asked thoughtful questions about his work, his hobbies, and his daily routine, and Jamin found himself opening up in a way he hadn't expected. By the time the meal was finished, Jamin felt a growing sense of kinship with his new slave. He no longer saw her as a burden, but as a unique and fascinating individual. As they cleaned up the kitchen together, Jamin couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to take an unexpected turn. Whatever the future held, he knew that Hannah would be a central part of it. In the weeks that followed, Jamin's growing relationship with Hannah did not go unnoticed by his family and friends. Word quickly spread that the young man had been gifted an alien slave by the Galactic Trade Federation, and his inner circle was far from pleased. Jamin's parents were the first to confront him about the situation. They arrived at his modest apartment unannounced, their faces etched with disapproval. "Jamin, what is the meaning of this?" his mother demanded, her brow furrowed in a deep scowl. "We hear you have taken in an alien slave. Have you lost your mind?" Jamin straightened his posture, bracing himself for the inevitable confrontation. "Mother, father, I understand your concern," he began, keeping his tone measured and respectful. But Hannah is not just a slave to me. She is. He paused, struggling to find the right words. She is a person, with her own unique talents and abilities. I've come to appreciate her as an individual. His father's eyes narrowed, his lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. An individual? Jamin, this is madness. She is a slave, nothing more. You cannot possibly be considering treating her as an equal. Jamin felt a flicker of frustration. Father, I know this may seem unconventional, but I assure you, I am treating Hannah with the utmost care and respect. She has proven herself to be a valuable asset, both in the home and in my work. His mother let out an exasperated sigh. Jamin, you are making a grave mistake. This alien has bewitched you. You must send her away before she corrupts you further. Jamin's jaw tightened, and he could feel the heat rising in his cheeks. I will do no such thing, he replied firmly. Hannah is not a possession to be discarded at your whim. She is a living, breathing being, and she deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with the weight of their disagreement. Jamin's parents exchanged a loaded glance, their expressions a mixture of shock and outrage. This is unacceptable, his father declared, his voice heavy with authority. You are bringing shame upon our family. If you refuse to see reason, then we have no choice but to take matters into our own hands. With that, they turned and stormed out of the apartment, leaving Jamin standing in stunned silence. When Hannah emerged from her room, having heard the commotion, Jamin could see the apprehension in her dark eyes. What has happened? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jamin sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. My family, they are not pleased with the arrangement, he admitted, his tone laced with frustration. They believe I am making a grave mistake by treating you as anything more than a slave. Hannah's brow furrowed slightly, and Jamin could see the wheels turning in her mind. I see, she murmured, her gaze dropping to the floor. I did not mean to cause you such trouble. Jamin reached out, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Hannah, you have done nothing wrong, he assured her, his voice soft and sincere. This is not your fault. My family simply, they do not understand. Hannah looked up, her eyes searching his face. Then what will you do? She asked, her tone tinged with a hint of worry. Jamin squared his shoulders, his jaw set with determination. I will stand firm, he declared. I will not back down from this, no matter what my family says. You are a person, Hannah, and you deserve to be treated as such. Hannah's eyes widened, and for a moment, Jamin could see a glimmer of hope in her gaze. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. As Jamin watched Hannah retreat back to her room, he couldn't help but feel a sense of resolve and purpose. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, with his family and friends continuing to oppose his relationship with Hannah. But in that moment, he was more certain than ever that he was doing the right thing. As the tensions between Jamin and his family continued to escalate, Hannah found herself increasingly intrigued by the complexities of human society. She had grown up in a very different cultural context, one where the rigid hierarchies and power structures of the Galactic Trade Federation were the norm. During her private moments, Hannah would ponder the nuances of Jamin's relationships with his family and friends. She could sense the deep divides and conflicting values that threatened to tear them apart, and it troubled her deeply. After all, she had been taught from a young age that individual desires and beliefs were to be subsumed to the greater good of the collective. One evening, as Jamin prepared a simple meal, Hannah approached him hesitantly. Jamin, she began, her voice soft but steady, may I ask you about your family? I confess, I do not fully understand the dynamics at play. Jamin looked up, his brow furrowed slightly. He hesitated for a moment, then gestured for Hannah to join him at the table. Of course, he replied, his tone laced with a hint of weariness. I suppose it's only fair that you understand the situation, given how deeply it affects you. As they sat together, Jianmin began to share the story of his upbringing, the expectations placed upon him by his traditional, well-respected family, the pressure to conform to their ideals, and the growing sense of disconnect he had felt over the years. Hannah listened intently, her dark eyes widening with each new revelation. "So you see," Jianmin concluded, his gaze meeting Hannah's, "my family's reaction to you is not just about you as an individual. It's about their deeply ingrained beliefs and the fear of losing control over the life they've mapped out for me." Hannah nodded slowly, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "I understand," she murmured, her voice tinged with a hint of sadness. "On my homeworld, the collective good was always prioritized over individual desires. The idea of such fierce opposition to an unexpected relationship is foreign to me." Jianmin reached across the table, gently placing his hand over Hannah's. "I know," he said, his voice low and sincere, "but I want you to know that I will not abandon you, no matter what my family says. You are more than just a slave to me, Hannah. You are a person, and you deserve to be treated with the same respect and dignity as anyone else." Hannah's eyes glistened with unused tears, and for a moment, Jianmin could see the full weight of her experiences reflected in her gaze. "Thank you, Jianmin," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You have shown me more kindness than I ever could have imagined." In the days that followed, Hannah found herself increasingly drawn to learning about Jianmin's world and the complexities of human society. She pored over the books and articles he shared with her, her curiosity insatiable. Jianmin, in turn, became fascinated by Hannah's own cultural background, eager to understand the norms and beliefs that had shaped her worldview. As their discussions deepened, Jianmin couldn't help but feel a growing sense of admiration and respect for Hannah. She possessed a keen intellect and an innate ability to analyze complex issues from multiple angles. Her insights often challenged his own preconceptions, forcing him to re-examine his own deeply held beliefs. One evening, as they sat together in comfortable silence, Hannah turned to Jianmin, her eyes shining with a newfound resolve. "Jianmin," she began, her voice steady and sure, "I want you to know that I am grateful for the kindness you have shown me. But I also want you to understand that I am not simply a passive recipient of your generosity. I have my own dreams, my own desires, and I am determined to fight for them, just as you have fought for me." Jianmin felt a surge of pride and respect, and he reached out to gently squeeze Hannah's hand. "I know," he replied, his voice thick with emotion, "and I wouldn't have it any other way." In that moment, Jianmin knew that his relationship with Hannah was destined for something far greater than the traditional master-slave dynamic. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was determined to stand by her side, to support her dreams, and to fight for the future they both desired. As Jianmin's relationship with Hannah deepened, the young man found himself increasingly torn between his growing feelings for the alien girl and the staunch disapproval of his family and friends. While Hannah had become a valued and trusted companion, the social stigma attached to their relationship proved to be a formidable obstacle. One evening, as Jianmin and Hannah sat together over a simple meal, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed through the apartment. Jianmin's eyes widened as his childhood friend, Sunwoo, burst through the door, his face flushed with a mixture of concern and anger. "Jianmin, what is the meaning of this?" Sunwoo demanded, his gaze immediately locking onto Hannah. "I've heard the most outrageous rumors, that you've taken in an alien slave and are consorting with her." His lips curled in a disapproving sneer. Jianmin straightened in his chair, his expression hardening. "Sunwoo, my friend, I understand your concerns," he began, his tone measured and diplomatic. "But Hannah is not just a slave to me. She is a valued companion, and I would appreciate it if you treated her with the same respect you would show any other person." Sunwoo's eyes narrowed, and he let out a derisive laugh. "Respect? Jianmin, are you out of your mind? This alien is nothing more than a possession, a tool to be used and discarded at your whim. and you're telling me to treat her with respect." Hannah remained silent, her gaze fixed on the table, as Seon-woo's words washed over her. Jae-min, however, refused to back down, his brow furrowed with a determined resolve. "Seon-woo, I understand that my relationship with Hannah may not align with the societal norms we've both grown up with," Jae-min said, his voice calm but firm. "But I can assure you, she is not a possession. She is a living, breathing individual with her own thoughts, feelings, and dreams, and I care for her deeply." Seon-woo's expression darkened, and he took a step towards Hannah, his fingers curling into a tight fist. "You fool, Jae-min, can't you see that she has bewitched you? This alien is corrupting you, turning you against your own kind. I won't stand for it." Before Jae-min could react, Hannah had risen from her chair, her posture straight and her gaze unwavering. "I understand your concerns, Seon-woo," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "But I assure you, I have not bewitched or corrupted your friend. I am simply a person, like any other, seeking to live my life with dignity and respect." Seon-woo's eyes widened, and for a moment, he seemed taken aback by Hannah's calm demeanor. But the moment passed, and his face contorted with a renewed fury. "Dignity and respect." He spat, his words dripping with venom. "You are nothing but a slave, Hannah. A means to an end, a tool to be used and discarded. And you, Jae-min, are a fool for thinking otherwise." With that, Seon-woo turned on his heel and stormed out of the apartment, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the tense silence that followed. Jae-min let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders sagging with the weight of the confrontation. He turned to Hannah, his expression filled with a mixture of regret and resolve. "I'm sorry you had to witness that, Hannah," he said, his voice laced with a hint of weariness. "Seon-woo he's a good friend, but he's also a product of our society's rigid beliefs. He simply can't understand what we have." Hannah reached across the table, gently placing her hand over Jae-min's. "I understand, Jae-min," she murmured, her dark eyes reflecting a profound empathy. "And I know that the path we have chosen will not be an easy one. But I am grateful to have you by my side, and I am determined to fight for our right to be together, no matter the cost." Jae-min felt a surge of affection and admiration for the young alien woman, and he squeezed her hand in return. "Then we shall fight together, Hannah," he said, his voice filled with a newfound conviction. "Whatever the future may hold, I will stand by you, no matter what." In that moment, Jae-min knew that his relationship with Hannah had transcended the boundaries of their initial master-slave dynamic. They were now partners, bound by a shared vision of a future where their love could flourish, undeterred by the prejudices of the world around them. In the weeks that followed, Jae-min's relationship with Hannah continued to deepen, even as the opposition from his family and friends grew more intense. His parents, in particular, remained steadfast in their disapproval, repeatedly urging him to sever ties with the alien woman. "Jae-min, this madness must stop," his mother pleaded during one particularly heated confrontation. "You are bringing shame upon our family. Can't you see that this alien is corrupting you, turning you against everything we hold dear?" Jae-min squared his shoulders, his brow furrowed with a mixture of frustration and determination. "Mother, I understand your concerns, but Hannah is not a source of corruption. She is a person with her own thoughts, feelings, and dreams, and I care for her deeply." His father's expression darkened, his lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. "Care for her? Jae-min, you speak as if she is your equal, your companion. But she is nothing more than a slave, a possession to be used and discarded as the situation demands." Jae-min felt a surge of anger, his fists clenching at his sides. "That is where you are wrong, father," he retorted, his voice firm and unyielding. "Hannah is not a possession. She is a living, breathing individual, and she deserves to be treated with the same respect and dignity as anyone else." The argument continued to escalate, with both sides digging in deeper, unwilling to compromise. Jae-min's parents threatened to disown him, warning that his relationship with Hana would only bring further shame and disgrace upon the family. Jae-min, in turn, refused to back down, his resolve hardening with each passing day. As the tensions reached a boiling point, Hana found herself the target of increasingly hostile behavior from Jae-min's extended family and social circle. Whispers and disapproving glares followed her every move, and on more than one occasion, she was confronted by individuals who made it clear that they wanted her gone. One afternoon, as Hana was running a simple errand, she was accosted by a group of Jae-min's acquaintances, their faces twisted with a mixture of disgust and contempt. "Well, look who it is," one of them sneered, his eyes narrowing. "The alien slave, out and about, as if she has any right to be here." Hana felt her heart race, but she refused to let her fear show. Squaring her shoulders, she met their gazes with a calm, unwavering expression. "I am not a slave," she replied, her voice steady and resolute. "I am a person, and I have every right to be here, just as you do." The group erupted into a chorus of derisive laughter, the sound cutting through the air like a knife. "A person? Don't make us laugh," another one scoffed. "You're nothing but a possession, a tool to be used and discarded at our convenience." Hana's jaw tightened, and she felt a surge of anger and determination. "I am not a possession," she retorted, her voice laced with a quiet intensity. "I am a living, breathing individual with my own thoughts, feelings, and dreams, and I will not be silenced or intimidated by your bigoted beliefs." Before the confrontation could escalate further, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd, his face etched with a mix of concern and fury. It was Sun-woo, Jae-min's longtime friend. "That's enough," Sun-woo snapped, his voice sharp and commanding. "Leave her alone, all of you. This has gone too far." The group fell silent, their expressions shifting from defiance to uncertainty. Sun-woo stood his ground, his gaze sweeping over them with a stern, uncompromising resolve. "Jae-min may have made a foolish choice, but that does not give you the right to harass and intimidate this woman," he continued, his tone dripping with disdain. "If I hear of any further incidents, I will make sure you all pay the consequences." With that, Sun-woo gestured for Hana to follow him, and the two made their way back to Jae-min's apartment in tense silence. As they walked, Hana couldn't help but feel a newfound sense of respect and gratitude towards the young man who had once been so vehemently opposed to her presence. When they arrived, Jae-min greeted them with a worried expression, his brow furrowed with concern. "Hana, Sun-woo, what happened?" he asked, his voice laced with urgency. Sun-woo let out a heavy sigh, his gaze meeting Jae-min's with a newfound understanding. "It's a long story, my friend," he said, his tone surprisingly somber. "But I think it's time we had a talk." In the wake of the confrontation with Jae-min's acquaintances, Hana found herself increasingly the target of hostility and threats. Word of her relationship with Jae-min had spread like wildfire through their social circles, igniting a firestorm of disapproval and prejudice. As Jae-min and Sun-woo sat together, the former's brow furrowed with worry, the latter's expression a mix of remorse and determination. "Jae-min, I owed you an apology," Sun-woo began, his voice tinged with sincerity. "I've been a fool, blinded by the same narrow-minded beliefs that have plagued our community." Jae-min raised a hand, his gaze steady. "Sun-woo, there's no need for apologies. I know how deeply ingrained these societal prejudices are. I'm just grateful you were there to intervene today." Sun-woo nodded, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Still, I should have seen this coming. Hana is in danger, and it's because of my own bigoted behavior." He turned to the young alien woman, his eyes filled with a newfound respect. "Hana, I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me?" Hana met his gaze evenly, her expression calm and composed. "I appreciate your apology, Sun-woo," she replied, her voice soft but resolute. and I understand the power of societal conditioning. What matters to me now is that you're willing to stand with us against this hatred and intolerance." Shan Wu's shoulders visibly relaxed, and he reached out to gently squeeze Hannah's hand. "You have my word," he said, his tone laced with a newfound determination. "I will do whatever it takes to protect you and Janmin, no matter the cost." Janmin let out a heavy sigh, his brow furrowed with concern. "I'm grateful for your support, Sinwu, but I fear it may not be enough. The threats against Hannah have only grown more intense, and I'm not sure how much longer we can keep her safe." Xianwu's expression darkened, and he leaned forward in his chair, his gaze intense. "Then we'll have to take matters into our own hands. Janmin, I know a few people who might be able to help us. Discreet, trusted allies who can provide us with the resources and protection we need." Janmin's eyes widened, and he found himself torn between his desire to keep Hannah safe and his deep-seated aversion to engaging in any potentially unethical or illegal activities. "Xianwu, I'm not sure that's such a good idea. We can't just—" "Janmin," Hannah interrupted, her voice low and firm. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect our future together. If these allies of Sinwu's can help us, then I say we should consider it." Jae-min felt a surge of admiration and pride for the young woman, and he reached out to gently grasp her hand. "Hannah, you know I will support you, no matter what. But I want you to understand the risks involved. These are dangerous waters we're wading into." Hannah squeezed his hand, her dark eyes shining with determination. "I know, Jamin, but I'm not going to back down, not when we've come this far. Our love is worth fighting for, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect it." Jamin nodded, his expression resolute. "Then so am I," he replied, his voice steady and sure. With that, Sinwu sprung into action, making a series of discreet phone calls and arranging a meeting with his trusted contacts. As the three of them huddled together, mapping out a plan of action, Jamin couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He knew that the path they were about to embark on was fraught with risk, but the thought of losing Hannah was simply too much to bear. In the end, Jamin and Hannah had no choice but to place their trust in Sinwu's allies, hoping that their combined resources and expertise would be enough to shield them from the growing threats that loomed on the horizon. As they set their plan in motion, Jamin couldn't help but wonder what the future had in store for them, but one thing was certain: he was more determined than ever to fight for the woman he loved, no matter the cost. After enlisting the help of Sinwu's trusted allies, Jamin and Hannah found themselves immersed in a complex, high-stakes struggle to protect their burgeoning relationship. The threats from Jamin's family and community continued to mount, and it became increasingly clear that they would need to employ unconventional and potentially dangerous measures to ensure their safety. Over the course of several weeks, Jamin and Hannah worked closely with Sinwu's contacts, carefully planning their next moves. They secured safe accommodations, established secure communication channels, and laid the groundwork for a legal defense strategy should the situation escalate further. Throughout this process, Hannah continued to be the target of harassment and intimidation, with members of Jamin's social circle going to increasingly desperate lengths to try and drive a wedge between the two. Jamin watched helplessly as Hannah faced these trials with a remarkable resilience and composure, her determination to fight for their love only growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as Jamin and Hannah sat together in their temporary safe house, the young man turned to his beloved with a deep sense of admiration and respect. "Hannah," he began, his voice soft but filled with emotion, "I want you to know how much you've come to mean to me. When you first came into my life, I was uncertain, even fearful, of the responsibilities that came with owning a slave. But you've proven time and again that you are so much more than that. You're a person, a partner, a source of strength and inspiration." Hannah's dark eyes glistened with unused tears, and she reached out to gently caress Janmin's cheek. "Janmin," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have shown me more kindness and respect than I ever could have imagined. You have fought tirelessly to defend our love, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. I am honored to call you my partner, my equal." Jamin felt his heart swell with a profound sense of love and gratitude. Leaning in, he pressed his forehead against Hannah's, his hands gently cradling her face. "Then let's continue to fight, Hannah," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Whatever challenges lie ahead, we will face them together, as equals, as partners in this journey of life." Hannah nodded, a small radiant smile spreading across her lips. "Yes, Jamin. Until the end." In the days that followed, Jamin and Hannah's legal defense team swung into action, leveraging their connections and resources to mount a formidable challenge against the mounting threats. They filed formal complaints, appealed to higher authorities, and even managed to secure temporary protection orders to shield Hannah from the most egregious forms of harassment. As word of their courageous stand spread, Jamin and Hannah found themselves the subject of both praise and condemnation. Some members of the community, inspired by their unwavering commitment to their love, rallied to their side, offering support and solidarity. Others, however, remained steadfast in their opposition, doubling down on their efforts to tear the couple apart. But Jamin and Hannah refused to be deterred. They stood firm in their convictions, their bond only growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. And as the legal battle raged on, something remarkable began to happen, a shift in the attitudes of those around them. Slowly but surely, Jamin's family and friends began to reconsider their stance, their eyes opened to the humanity and dignity that Hannah embodied. They saw the depth of Jamin's love, the unwavering resolve that drove him to fight for his partner. And they could no longer dismiss their relationship as a mere aberration or act of rebellion. In the end, it was a long and arduous journey, fraught with challenges and setbacks. But Jamin and Hannah persevered, their love and determination serving as beacons of hope in a world that had once sought to tear them apart. And when the final judgment was handed down, there was not a dry eye in the courtroom. Jamin and Hannah had won, their relationship recognized and celebrated as a shining example of the power of true love to transcend even the most deeply entrenched societal divides. As they emerged from the courthouse, hand in hand, Jamin and Hannah knew that their story had become something more than just a personal triumph. It was a testament to the transformative power of compassion, understanding, and the unwavering belief in the inherent worth of every individual, regardless of their origins or perceived status. And in that moment, they knew that their journey was not yet over, that theirs was a love destined to inspire and uplift others, to serve as a beacon of hope in a world that so desperately needed it.